Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this hour with breaking news out of the Middle East, a high-profile assassination that raises fears the region will plunge deeper into crisis. Overnight, Hamas said that its political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was killed by Israel in a strike on his home in Tehran, Iran's capital. Israel has not yet commented on the attack, but it previously said it would target Hamas's leaders. Both Hamas and Iran are vowing to retaliate. Now, Haniyeh was one of the main negotiators in the Gaza ceasefire talks. That deal could be in doubt after a key mediator, Qatar, condemned his death, saying it, quote, undermines the chances of peace. Earlier on Tuesday, Israel confirmed it assassinated a senior Hezbollah military commander in a strike outside the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Local reports say 2 children and a woman were also killed, while dozens were left injured. That attack was in retaliation for a strike in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights last week that killed 12 people. In a few moments, we're going to speak with NBC News military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs. But first, let's get to NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley, who joins us from Beirut. Matt, we know the hunt for Hamas's leadership has been ongoing for nearly 10 months now, since October 7th. Walk us through how this unfolded and the reaction we've been getting from across the region, including Iran, where this happened.
Well, Joe, we've heard from the Iranians. They said that this was a missile that was fired from some sort of airborne entity, some sort of probably a plane outside of Iranian territory. So it wasn't as though whatever was carrying this missile entered into Iranian airspace. This is according to the Iranians, who have now declared 3 days of mourning. They've also said that they're going to retaliate, and we've been hearing a chorus of condemnation from throughout the Middle East, calls for essentially Israel to step back, but also calls that sound like escalation. And that is why this was such an inflammatory move by the Israelis. Yes, they have said ever since October 7th that they're going to be hunting down Hamas leaders wherever they can find them and killing them. And they did the same back here in Beirut back in January, when they had a similar attack to the one that we just saw just yesterday that assassinated a Hamas leader. Yesterday's was assassinating a Hezbollah leader. But the Israelis haven't said that they were behind that assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, a top Hamas official in Tehran, the capital of Iran, just earlier this morning. But everybody is pretty much assured that they have done this. They haven't denied it. And in the past, they've been behind several assassinations of top officials and top Iranian officials and scientists who are coming up with their nuclear program in Iran. So this is entirely feasible. Now, whether or not this moves on to complicate negotiations or creates a region-wide war, that is the real concern here, and it's one that American diplomats are watching very, very closely.
Yeah, Joe. So, I mean, let's talk about the ceasefire deal. This Hamas leader was a critical figure in those Gaza ceasefire talks. How does his death impact hopes for a deal for the hostages?
Yeah, well, we just heard from Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State. He's in Singapore. He said that he refuses to speculate on how events in general will affect the future. Now, that's a very wise position to take, but we've already gotten some sightings that this will certainly complicate things by eroding trust in the Israelis. Qatar's prime minister has come out and said that if the Israelis are behind it, then how is it that they can negotiate with the Israelis if the Israelis are killing top negotiators? Now, this is because Qatar, of course, has been hosting and in many ways mediating a lot of the negotiations between Hamas and Israel, along with the Egyptians and the Americans. So for them, they've simply lost one of the main parties in their negotiations. Ismail Haniyeh was part of all of this. So this could complicate things going forward, but the real complication here is going to be whatever the retaliation is. Here in Hezbollah, here in Lebanon, they are poised and ready to respond to that attack from yesterday. Now we're hearing the Iranians, who are the main patrons of Hezbollah, are vowing to retaliate. Hamas, of course, has reason to retaliate. So this is all of the circle kind of closing in on Israel, just as they really can't necessarily afford to open a new front on their northern border with here in Lebanon. Joe?
All right, Matt Bradley in Beirut. Matt, thank you so much. Let's get more on all this with NBC News military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs. Colonel, good to have you with us. So many countries in the Middle East fear this could be a dangerous escalation in this conflict. Qatar's prime minister says it could jeopardize ceasefire talks. How do you see this impacting the war in Gaza and just hopes for a peace deal?
Well, in the first instance, the ceasefire talks are going to be on hold for sure. They were running into problems in any case because Hamas was being intransigent about the terms. But nevertheless, this is going to slow or stop completely ceasefire talks that were mediated by the United States and Qatar and others. That's going to slow down, if not stop. With respect to Hezbollah, in the past, Hezbollah's response has been to fire a very large number of rockets from Lebanon into northern Israel. They do have the capability of reaching Tel Aviv and other cities, and it's possible that Hezbollah will respond by firing rockets into populated areas farther south from the Lebanese border. If that happens, we can expect a very serious escalation of the conflict. Israel has put itself in a very difficult position because Netanyahu originally said that the objective was to destroy Hamas as a military entity completely. Very difficult to do inside Gaza. Even more difficult to do when you're threatened, as Israel is, by Hezbollah in the north. A two-front war, very, very difficult to deal with. And, of course, dangerous escalation with the possibility of fighting with Iran on Israeli soil, Joe.
Let's talk more about what happened in Iran. It took place on Iranian soil. Iran has said it's going to retaliate and defend its territorial integrity. Do you think this could lead to a resurfacing of that sort of back and forth of attacks we saw between Israel and Iran back in April? Or is this attack different? Is this something bigger?
Well, nothing could be bigger than what we had before, because that had the capability of escalating seriously into a regional conflict. This is going to be a step-level function. That is, we can expect that Hezbollah will fire a very large number of rockets. How Israel responds, that's going to tell the difference. That will spell the difference between whether or not there will be quiescence after that, or there will be a dangerous escalation, including Iran. But we shouldn't forget that Iran is supports Hezbollah completely. Almost everything that happens that Hezbollah does is supported by, and instigated by Iran. So watch for rockets. If there is a smaller response from Israel after that, things will quiet down, and it may very well be that negotiations will continue about Gaza. But if but it's possible it could spill over very, very quickly, and if it does, then Israel is going to have a great deal of trouble, particularly in the north. Don't forget, Israel had to take a lot of its troops out of Gaza because it couldn't afford to have them in uniform. 250, 300,000 Israelis in uniform. It can't do that again. If it puts them back in uniform, there is going to be a very big escalation, particularly in the north, Joe.
All right. Colonel Jacobs, as always, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning.
You bet.
Leaders of the Secret Service are still facing tough questions from lawmakers about the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. Acting Director Ronald Rowe is now the one fielding tough questions on Capitol Hill after his predecessor resigned. Yesterday, he was grilled about the security failures that led to it all. And in an NBC News exclusive, we're hearing from Attorney General Merrick Garland, who calls the July 13th shooting extremely alarming. NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney joins us now with more on all this. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. I was able to interview Merrick Garland and get him to make his first public comments about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And he spoke on a day, as you said, when lawmakers expressed outrage about the security failures. Garland said this was a massive security failure. He shared their outrage, but he was confident that the Secret Service would get its act together and figure out what went wrong. Here's more.
17 days after former President Trump survived an assassination attempt by a gunman on a rooftop, a remarkable admission from the acting Secret Service director, who says he went to the rally site.
I laid in a prone position to evaluate his line of sight. What I saw made me ashamed. As a career law enforcement officer and a 25-year veteran with the Secret Service, I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured.
We pressed Attorney General Merrick Garland in an exclusive interview. You heard the acting Secret Service director say today that he was ashamed of the security failures that almost cost a former president his life. As the nation's top law enforcement officer, how do you feel about what happened?
Look, this attack on the former president was a heinous attack on former President Trump, but also a heinous attack on our democracy itself. This was a major security failure.
How alarmed are you that a 20-year-old was able to get a clear shot 150 yards from a former president?
So this is extremely alarming. That's why we have to find out what happened here, why it happened, and make sure it doesn't happen again.
In a hearing, acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe grilled by lawmakers.
Stop interrupting me.
Go ahead,
You are
Senator.
refusing to answer clear and direct questions.
Demanding to know why no one has been fired yet.
We are investigating this. What
more do you need to investigate
was.
to know that there were critical enough failures that some individuals ought to be held accountable? I mean, what more do you need to know?
What I need to know is exactly what happened, and I need...
Rowe acknowledging the assassination attempt could have been prevented if his agency had deployed technology that would have revealed the gunman flew a drone overhead 2 hours before Mr. Trump spoke.
I feel as though we could have perhaps found him. We could have maybe stopped him.
The deputy FBI director revealing the discovery of a social media account linked to the gunman, though not yet verified.
Some of these comments appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes to espouse political violence.
While Garland telling us more about the Iranian threat against Mr. Trump and other former U.S. officials.
Our intelligence community has made clear that we believe that the Iranians are attempting to kill or injure former high government officials. This is an ongoing issue. We have ongoing investigations.
You don't think we've seen the end?
I don't think we've seen the end of Iranian plotting, no.
And Joe, Merrick Garland also talked about what he called the scary increase in violent threats to public officials. He said the Justice Department has brought more than 700 cases in the last 2 years and no signs of stopping. He's very concerned about the climate of violent political rhetoric. Joe.
All right, Ken Delaney, and thank you so much for that exclusive interview. We appreciate it. Today, former President Trump does head back to Pennsylvania for the first time since the assassination attempt against him. Mr. Trump is set to hold a campaign event tonight in Harrisburg with thousands expected to attend. It has been 18 days since the former president held that now infamous rally in Butler, where a gunman opened fire from a nearby roof, grazing his ear with a bullet. One person was killed, 2 others were injured in that shooting. NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns has been covering the Trump campaign. She joins us now with the latest. Dasha, good morning. So what can we expect at tonight's rally? We know these rallies are happening indoors now, but what's the security situation?
Yeah, Joe, a couple of things. It being indoors is certainly a big shift. Many of Trump's rallies before this had been outside. And yeah, expect heightened security. We don't have explicit details on that. As you can imagine, they are trying to keep some of that close to the vest. But there will be more security here. And given it's his first time in Pennsylvania since the assassination attempt, I would also expect the former president to address it. I'll also be watching, Joe, for the messaging pivot on Vice President Kamala Harris. At his last rally, Biden was very much a focus, even though he had already left the race. But the Trump campaign is trying out new attack lines on Harris, on the border, on her time as a prosecutor, trying out new nicknames. And these are really an important few weeks for the Trump campaign strategy against a new opponent, Joe.
Let's talk about VP nominee Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. He's campaigning this week in the West. He visited Nevada yesterday, criticizing Vice President Harris. He's also talking about his rollout as Mr. Trump's running mate, which got off to a rough start. What are we learning?
Yeah, our colleague Henry Gomez actually caught up with him, interviewed him on a way to a rally yesterday. And Vance told him he doesn't feel he has disappointed the former president. He says he knew when he came out of the gate there would be a couple of days of positive press coverage, and then immediately folks would go on the attack. You know, he has faced criticism from allies of Vice President Kamala Harris for his 2021 comments questioning the societal value of women who don't have children, referring to them as childless cat ladies. And Harris's campaign over the last week has tried to brand Vance and his political point of view as, quote, weird. But he was also on the attack yesterday. Take a listen.
She unleashed the worst border crisis in American history on her watch. In 3.5 years, more than 10 million illegal aliens have invaded our country. Loyalty is serving in the United States Marine Corps, something I did. Loyalty is taking a bullet for this country, something Donald Trump did. If Kamala Harris wants to talk about loyalty, then she should look in the mirror.
And he is headed to the border tomorrow to highlight immigration, and he'll be rallying with former President Trump in Atlanta, Georgia over the weekend, Joe.
And Dasha, as for the former president, he made a controversial comment about VP Harris, suggesting she would not be able to stand up to leaders on the world stage. Now his campaign is playing defense. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, he said specifically that Harris wouldn't be able to stand up to leaders on the world stage because of her appearance, adding that he didn't want to spell it out, but that people would know what he meant. And his campaign is now responding, a spokesperson saying that he was not referring to race or gender, and went on to criticize Harris over her record on immigration and other Biden administration policies, saying she's weak, dishonest, and dangerously liberal, Joe.
All right, Dasha Burns, thank you so much. Vice President Harris is now officially the only candidate seeking the Democratic presidential nomination. That's because a key deadline passed last night with no one else qualifying. The Democratic National Committee says 99% of delegates signed Harris's nominating petition. The vice president campaigned yesterday in Georgia, a state that Democrats hope to win again in this election. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander has more from the campaign trail as both sides ramp up their attacks.
Vice President Harris arriving in Georgia, a state that Democrats feared was becoming out of reach, but now with a new likely nominee, hope to win again. Asked whether she'd picked a running mate. The Harris campaign veiling its first TV ad, touting her time as a local and state prosecutor in California, calling her fearless.
She put murderers and abusers behind bars. Kamala Harris has always known who she represents.
Meanwhile, Trump running mate J.D. Vance is set to visit the border Thursday to attack the Biden-Harris administration as weak on illegal immigration.
After bringing them all here, they proposed amnesty for millions of illegal aliens. She might as well have invited them personally to break our laws and come into our country.
It's also the focus of this new Trump ad.
Under Harris, over 10 million illegally here.
Former President Trump defending Vance's controversial comments from 2021, critical of Democratic leaders who are, quote, childless cat ladies, referencing Vance's rise from poverty.
He grew up in a very interesting family situation, and he feels family is good. And I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that.
The director of a conservative group's Project 2025 vision calling for an overhaul of the federal government has stepped down. The group faced escalating Democratic attacks and comes after Trump sharply criticized Project 2025 that's run by a number of his allies. The Trump campaign saying reports of Project 2025's demise would be greatly welcomed. Meanwhile, in the crucial Atlanta suburbs, Democrat Kim Loudermilk was anxious when President Biden dropped out of the race.
I was worried that it was too close to the election and that, it would be hard to get a campaign together.
And now, what do you think?
And now I'm super excited about Kamala.
But Republican Ben Wilson blames both Biden and Harris for high prices.
And everything from gas prices to, it just eggs. The cost of living, just everything economy-wise.
Our thanks to Peter Alexander for that report. We do expect to hear about Vice President Harris's running mate choice soon. Two sources familiar with the matter tell NBC News they'll tour battleground states together beginning next week. Turning to the West Coast, California's Park Fire grew in size overnight. It's now the 5th largest wildfire in that state's history, the state that has seen some monstrous fires over the last decade. Well, that might be the biggest fire. It's far from the only one. At last check, officials across the West reported that 89 large active wildfires are burning. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joins us now about 100 miles north of Sacramento with the latest. Steve, good morning. So overnight, the fire just continued to grow. How big is it now? Are crews any closer to getting a handle on it?
The fire seemingly never stops growing here, Joe. More than 380,000 acres, if you can picture it. It is larger than the city of Los Angeles. It's about half the size of the state of Rhode Island. Now, that entire circumference is not literally on fire. As we speak, the firefighters doing a good job of pushing it further into a forested area. The hope is that it lays down, it burns out, and it dies away. But officials estimate that could take several months several rains before that actually happens. In the meantime, the main objective is to push it away from city centers. To that end, they've done quite a good job. 18% containment now on this fire. That number goes up along with the acreage every single day. We should say that as well. Firefighters working as hard as they can around the clock to keep it away from where people actually live. Most of the evacuation alerts that are on the ground are now warnings and not orders, and even some of those orders and warnings have lifted since we've been here on the ground. So firefighters, again, doing the best that they can, but there is more hot, dry, windy weather in the forecast. We could reach triple digits as early as today or even tomorrow, and that, of course, complicates everything that's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, every fire presents its own challenge. What are the biggest challenges here? And are firefighters still having to help residents evacuate, or is that at least now behind us?
You know, there are mountain communities that are obviously still impacted and affected by the immediate threat of fire. And in those communities, they are a hair's breadth at all times, probably away from an evacuation order or firefighters having to go to door and get people out. If this thing were to explode again in another direction, that's always a danger. It's always a danger where I'm standing. It's a danger everywhere when you're next to a fire zone like this. Other places are a little bit harder to deal with than others, of course. But for the most part, you know, firefighters have a good handle on keeping it back and away from where people are living. Again, they're trying to do the best job that they can of that. The challenge has been the terrain, especially when you're trying to push it into an area that is more forested, into an area that, you know, you're dealing with hillsides, you're dealing with cliff sides. You have to make very precise airdrops if you have an air game, so to speak. And if not, then it's these hand crews that have to go up into these huge hills, the networks of hills, to try to keep the fire contained. So that is sort of the big deal. And then the other thing is the thing that I mentioned. If this heats up again, it is miserable to try to put out a fire when you have 100+ degree temperatures. It just feeds and fuels what's already on the ground. And then obviously, you know, you've got guys in pounds of gear that are doing that work. Joe?
You know, Steve, this fire is getting a lot of attention, but there are dozens of fires burning out west right now. I mean, just real quick, how's that impacting the crews, which are stretched so thin this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, 5,000 firefighters on this fire alone. The resources to have to combat these things is enormous. And, you know, these are people that are working 24, 36, 48-hour shifts. They're exhausted. They've been doing it for weeks. And we're so early in the firefighting season. It's just unbelievable to think about what this looks like come the fall. It's going to take a lot of work here.
All right, Steve, thanks for your coverage over the last several days. Please continue to stay safe. Let's turn now to NBC News meteorologist Angie Lassman for a check on the weather. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. We've got that heat to talk about, not just for parts of the West, but a good chunk of the country. We've got 86 million people under these heat alerts, and these have expanded actually as the morning's gone on. Now includes some major metropolitan areas across the country like New York City, Miami. You can see Atlanta, Oklahoma City. Out west, we've got some of those still in play here, and those are likely going to last for the next couple of days. But let's talk about where the greatest heat and humidity is kind of centered right now. And that's across most of the east, but specifically across parts of the center of the country. Wichita is expected to hit 103 today, but notice where that heat index lands, 108. We've got St. Louis into the high 90s, but feeling like 110. Even Chicago, upper 80s, not a bad actual temperature for this time of year, but you're going to be well into the 90s for what it feels like when you add in all that humidity. The farther south you go, still triple digits for Washington, D.C., Charlotte, Macon, Jackson when it comes to those feels like temperatures. And this is just today. Notice we wrap up July really feeling like summer, and we roll into August with more of the same. We don't have a whole lot of improvement. And this really goes out west as well. You see Salt Lake City, 99 degrees. Tomorrow, St. Louis, 98 degrees. 108 for what it'll feel like in Charlotte tomorrow. In New York City, you're going to get in on this action too. We'll see low 90s, but feeling near 100 as we get into tomorrow. Now, this weekend, still dealing with the heat wave kind of conditions across the middle of the country and across parts of the Rockies. 100 degrees both Friday and Saturday in Salt Lake City. We don't make much of an improvement by Sunday. Similar story for Oklahoma City. You're into those triple digits Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You're near triple digits. Memphis will sit at 97 on Friday, 93 and 94 on Saturday and Sunday. Now, good news from what Steve was just talking about. We actually don't have as many fire alerts in place right now, but notice there's still some out there, those red flag warnings that you see in the bright pink there, Cheyenne included, and we see the fire fire weather watch for parts of California and Oregon. We still do have those elevated winds and the low levels of humidity, so still looking at kind of conditions for that along with those warm temperatures, but not enough for the alerts to be up. But we sure have a lot of smoke that we're dealing with across that region. So the poor air quality is going to be something that sticks with us today, likely lasting into this evening, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how that plays out, Joe, but still 9 million people included in that, as that smoke also will continue to be on the move, working through parts of the Midwest, the Great Lakes as the day goes on. So you'll notice a bit of a haze out there. If you have any respiratory issues, this is something to make note of for sure.
Another one of those major issues, one of the impacts of all these fires. All right, Angie, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.